There's rumors of a tunnel. Fausto's main route into Arizona. If you're doing what I think you're doing, that's the best place to cross. If you can find it. But time is against you.
For a while now, fans of tense, gritty thrillers have been wondering if Sicario 3 will ever happen. The franchise started strong back in 2015 with Denis Villeneuve's Sicario, a film that pulled audiences deep into the shadowy world of the U.S. war on drugs along the southern border. It wasn't just another crime story, it was layered, stylish, and emotionally heavy, with Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, and Benicio del Toro all delivering unforgettable performances. The film received critical praise and quickly carved out a place as one of the best modern thrillers of the decade. Because of that success, a sequel naturally followed, but it left fans with mixed feelings and a big question: could a third movie tie everything together and bring closure? That sequel, Sicario: Day of the Soldado, arrived in 2018 under the direction of Stefano Sollima. This time, the story shifted away from Blunt's Kate Macer and focused more on Brolin's government operative Matt Graver and Del Toro's mysterious hitman Alejandro. Even though it lacked Villeneuve's directing touch and Blunt's character, it still expanded the world, giving us more of the brutal, morally gray war on drugs. The ending even set up the possibility of a new chapter, but the franchise slipped into silence afterward, leaving fans to speculate whether Sicario 3 was just wishful thinking. Now, things have started to look more hopeful. In a recent appearance on the Happy Sad Confused podcast, Josh Brolin admitted that while he once thought Sicario 3 was never going to happen, he's recently been hearing otherwise. In fact, he said the project feels very, very real now. That's the kind of update fans have been waiting years for, because it signals that something might finally be moving behind the scenes. When host Josh Horowitz asked Brolin if Villeneuve would come back to direct, Brolin was honest and admitted he didn't know. But even so, his words suggest there's more smoke here than before, and where there's smoke, there's usually fire. This update matters because until now, the most consistent news around Sicario 3 was that it was stuck in development hell. There were announcements, rumors, and occasional teases, but nothing that felt solid. Brolin himself has previously been vague, sometimes suggesting the movie was unlikely. So hearing him call it very, very real is the strongest sign yet that the film is finally getting closer to reality. It's worth noting that Brolin isn't just a cast member, he's been a steady part of the franchise since the beginning, so his perspective carries some weight. Of course, there's still the question of who will direct. Denis Villeneuve is one of the busiest filmmakers working today, especially with his ongoing work on the Dune series. His schedule makes it difficult to imagine him stepping back into the Sicario world anytime soon, but that doesn't mean the door is closed. If Villeneuve somehow finds a gap after finishing Dune Messiah, it could line up perfectly. And then there's Taylor Sheridan, the writer behind the first Sicario, whose voice shaped much of what made that film resonate. Sheridan is currently tied up with Yellowstone projects, but with that saga wrapping its main story, he could be free to revisit Sicario soon. The idea of Sheridan and Villeneuve teaming up again feels like the dream scenario, because their combined vision is what made the first movie so remarkable. When you look back, the first Sicario had everything working in its favor. Emily Blunt gave audiences an anchor through her character Kate, who was relatable in a way that balanced out the more ruthless roles of Brolin's Graver and Del Toro's Alejandro. The film also featured Daniel Kaluuya, adding another strong performance to the mix. That combination of emotional perspective, moral ambiguity, and Villeneuve's striking visuals created something unforgettable. Day of the Soldado, on the other hand, didn't quite manage to capture that same magic. It wasn't a bad movie, but without Blunt and without Villeneuve's direction, it leaned more heavily on Alejandro, a character who's fascinating but not as easy for audiences to connect with. Because of that, the sequel didn't hit the same emotional notes, and its Rotten Tomatoes score reflects that, with only 62% compared to the first film's 92%. Financially, the numbers tell a similar story. The original Sicario pulled in about $84 million worldwide on a modest budget, while the sequel earned around $75 million. Not terrible, but not the kind of growth that usually makes studios rush a third movie into production. That might explain why Sicario 3 has taken so long to gain traction. It has always been a property with strong creative energy behind it, but it hasn't quite been the guaranteed box office juggernaut that makes studios greenlight sequels without hesitation. Still, fans and the people involved haven't stopped thinking about it. In fact, Villeneuve himself has hinted in interviews that he'd love to direct another Sicario film if Sheridan was writing. Earlier in 2024, he said Sheridan was one of his favorite screenwriters, and that if Sheridan wrote something, he'd be excited to see it on screen. That's a big statement, because it shows Villeneuve hasn't fully closed the book on Sicario, even if he hasn't been formally approached yet. Pair that with Brolin's new update, and the pieces start to look like they could fall into place. The possibilities for the story are also wide open. At the end of Day of the Soldado, Alejandro survives an ambush and begins mentoring a new protege, setting up a thread that could easily be explored in a third film. A continuation could bring back the original cast, reunite characters we've been missing, and dive deeper into the systemic corruption and blurred moral lines that define the first movie. If done right, Sicario 3 could serve as a powerful conclusion to the trilogy, tying together loose ends and leaving audiences with something as impactful as the original. That said, there's also a real concern. Should Sicario 3 happen if Sheridan and Villeneuve aren't involved? A lot of people feel strongly that the franchise only works with those two at the core, because their creative chemistry set the tone for everything. Day of the Soldado proved that even talented filmmakers can struggle to capture what made the first Sicario special. So, while Brolin's excitement is encouraging, the question remains whether the right team will be in place to make the film worth doing. What's interesting is how long this project has been lingering in the shadows. Sicario 3, with the working title Sicario Capos, has been floating around since it was announced after Day of the Soldado. Sheridan was attached to write, but years passed without much movement. Development hell isn't unusual in Hollywood, but this case is a little more frustrating because the franchise clearly still has an audience and a story left to tell. It feels like every time someone hints at progress, the project goes quiet again, which is why Brolin's recent words feel like a turning point. So where does that leave us? Sicario 3 isn't officially confirmed yet, but the chances look better than ever. With Brolin's update, Villeneuve's openness, and Sheridan's potentially freeing up time, the stars could finally align. It might still take a while before cameras roll, but the foundation is there. The first film showed us how powerful and unique the franchise could be, and if the third film gets the right people on board, it has the potential to close things out in a way that honors what came before. In the end, Sicario 3 is shaping up to be one of those projects that fans will keep an eye on until something concrete happens. It's been a long wait, but sometimes long waits lead to the best payoffs. If Sheridan returns to write, if Villeneuve finds the time to direct, and if Brolin and Del Toro reprise their roles, and maybe even Emily Blunt comes back, then the third installment could give us the conclusion this gritty story deserves. Until then, all we can do is watch for updates and hope that very, very real turns into very, very soon. Well, that's it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe because we'll be covering more updates on this soon and other exciting upcoming movies and series. We'll see you next time.